my pleasure to introduce our first speaker tonight. We're extremely grateful to have Canadian Olympian and recent Canadian Olympic bronze medal winner Danielle Lawrie join us for the next 30 minutes on what will surely be an impactful talk for our viewers. Danielle is one of the most decorated softball players in history, where she's dominated the pitcher's circle as an amateur player, winning a national championship with the University of Washington, where she holds school records in career wins, shutouts, strikeouts, starts, appearances, complete games, and innings. She's also a two-time USA Softball Player of the Year, one in 2009 and 2010. Internationally, she's helped Canada win 2 World Cup medals, 2 Pan Am Games medals. She pitched at the 2008 Olympics in Beijing and came out of retirement to pitch for Canada last summer at Tokyo 2020, where she was the winning pitcher as Canada defeated Mexico 3-2 to win the Olympic bronze. Above all of this, Danielle is a mother of 2 daughters, a wife, a daughter herself, and a sister. She's a tremendous follow on Instagram, sharing real, authentic, and inspiring content. And she's here tonight to share her story, her journey in athletics and in life, and to share some of the challenges she has faced, challenges that she's overcome in reaching the highest levels of her sport. Just want to remind folks to please use the Q&A feature on the bottom of your screen if you have a question for Danielle, and hopefully we can get to some of them towards the end of her time with us tonight. So Danielle, welcome. Thanks again for joining us, and we look forward to listening and learning from you tonight.
Yes, this is awesome. I appreciate you reaching out and wanting me to be a part of this. You know, for those of you that don't know, that was an awesome introduction, but a highlight, I think, for me is when you talk about the National Player of the Year and being a Canadian. I think that was one of my proudest moments in the college game, because it allowed for me to realize it doesn't matter where you're from, you can be successful in this sport anywhere. And I was, and always will be, you know, so proud to be Canadian, even though I do live in Seattle. It's kind of surreal hanging up my cleats, especially after the run that we were able to do with our Team Canada. And before we get going, so many people always want to see the Olympic medal that we were able to finally get our hands on for Team Canada softball. It had been, a long drought. We came up so close in 2008, where I was a part of that team at 21 years old. But I want to make sure I leave enough time today for some questions. I'm just going to kind of go into a couple different things, because before you know it, 30 minutes goes by super quick. So I played 11 years with Canada across my chest. It was broken up a little bit. The 2008 Olympics, I was 21 years old. And then the 2021 games, 34 years old. So I think being a mama to 2 little girls and having a whole heck of a lot of life experience in between two just truly gave me a different love and zest and perspective on this sport. And not only did it make me a better mom to my girls, it made me a better wife, a better teammate, and just overall a better human being doing that grind with so much going on. And that's really my emphasis of what I want to talk about today, is just the mental grind, whether it's mental health, whether it's just the true grind of trying to be great in this sport, right? It's a challenge. And nowadays it's harder than ever, because there's so much pressure. There's so much expectation. You want to play at the highest level. You want to compete for a national championship. You want to play at those D1 colleges. You want to get drafted in the first round. There's so much pressure and expectation. And at times we shy away from helping people with the mental grind of it. And at the end of the day, that needs to be number one. If we are not capable of figuring out what's going on inside our dome and in between our ears, we're not in a position to thrive, not only in this game, but in life. And I really think about a situation for me that kind of started when I started to realize, like, okay, I'm going to have these ebbs and flows. And I played baseball super late. I played up until I think I was 11 years old and switched over to softball. I got cut from the Little League all-star team, the all boys team. I still to date believe it's because I was better than them, but it was simply because I was a girl. And I remember my dad pulling me aside and just saying, like, Danielle, like, your opportunities in the game of baseball can't really give you that next level of whatever it may be, whether it's college or an Olympic team. So let's kind of pursue different options. And I started out with Canada pretty young. I was very fortunate enough to be seen and to be able to wear that uniform, which essentially kind of got me started with that recruiting process. And my top three schools were Alabama, Washington, and Nebraska. And I think for me, choosing Washington was a no-brainer, simply because back in the day when I played, not a lot of games were on TV. So, you know, my mom and dad, Russ and Cheryl, and my brother and my whole family, I knew in my heart of hearts would not really be able to watch me play if I went to Alabama or Nebraska. So that 90-minute drive for them to be able to come watch me compete for 4 years was truly special, and a huge reason as to why I chose Washington. Because we don't grind alone, right? Like, people do this with us. Your parents take you to and from. They pay the bills for whatever you want to do to be successful in this sport. And I felt it in my gut that I would not be able to play to my full potential if I knew that my family wasn't going to be able to sit and watch me in the stands every single opportunity that they had. There was a moment in 2006 or 2005, that summer leading up until my first year at Washington. And this was my first season with Canada on the senior team. And I was 18 years old. You know, back in the day, I will say this about myself, I at times was more about myself than everyone else, and I'm not proud of that, but I've 100% grown into a completely different player, especially looking at this last Olympic Games. It was a goal of mine. But I remember competing in the World Cup of softball. Okay. And Lawrie Sipple was the coach, Team Canada softball. I was the youngest by far on the team with a lot of these older women. And we were going to be facing Team USA. And we were up on the travel ball fields, up top, warming up for the just having a practice. The next day we were playing USA. Canada had never beaten Team USA in the history of this game. Okay, that's a long time. And we're sitting up top, and Coach Sipple, who's kind of new, was just talking about like what our game plan is against Team USA tomorrow and where we're going with it. And you know, she's sitting there and she goes, you know, we're not going to win, and we haven't beat USA, and that's why we're going to start Danielle. And I remember kind of being like taken back in that moment, like, you're kind of putting me on blast here, saying, number one, this is my first ever experience with Team Canada at the senior level. And so you're telling me that we're going to lose, and that's why you're going to throw me. It didn't sit well with me. And I remember going back to the hotel and calling my dad, who is, you know, tough dude, always kind of shoots you straight and tells you how it is. And I remember this, you know, I was going to Washington in the fall, and he said, this is kind of your opportunity to leave your mark and really kind of see how you're going to go into Washington. And I remember using all of that pent up energy, being upset, being mad, and using that out on the field to say, why not me? Right? Like, I'm 18 years old, but it doesn't take away from this game. Yeah, I don't have the experience that these USA players have, coming fresh off of an Olympic gold medal in 2004. But damn, I know how to play this game, and I've worked hard at it. And we actually ended up winning that game. That was the first time that Canada had ever beaten the US, and we beat them 3-2. It was special for me because I think it honestly opened my eyes to, you know, people are always going to continue to put you down in the sport. If you're good, they don't like you. If you're not good, they don't like you. So it's kind of one of those things that women have to deal with as well. And I think sometimes you separate it, guys and girls. It is very, very different with sometimes how we roll with those punches. We can take stuff to heart as women a little bit more, and guys like, oh, screw you, I'm gonna prove you wrong. And that's an amazing mindset. And I think that's something that my dad has really strived in my upbringing as an athlete, was to kind of have that short-term memory and just that FU mentality. And it started in 2005 when we played Team USA. You know, and I think about another moment for me in that 2008 Olympics, okay, freshly turned 21. And when I think of facing adversity head on, for me, this was kind of a big moment. We had a pitcher on the team, Lauren Bay. Her and I actually just competed together, which was her third Olympics, and my second together. We were both moms on the team. So it was a super full circle moment for us to be able to have that together. But back in 2008, like she was the horse. We rode her every single game pretty much. I think I threw maybe 12 or 13 innings out of those 8 games that we played. And I wasn't sure how to process that, because all I've ever really known in this sport is if you work hard and you're great, your name's going to be called. And what I was never really taught was like how to sit back if my name isn't called and be someone else's biggest cheerleader. And this moment, I remember this is truly what, I can close my eyes and remember the emotions of it. And it's almost my biggest regret from that 2008 Olympic Games was we made it to the bronze medal game. We were going to be playing Australia. But the night before, on our off day, Coach Sipple called me up to a room and she's like, I think we're going to start you for the bronze medal game. That's the plan. Lauren Bays kind of has this hamstring or quad issue, and she's just not going to be 100% ready. And something that I had really worked on throughout that Olympic year was my mental performance. Ken Ravizza, I don't know if that name resonates with any of you guys, but he's a mental performance coach, passed away years ago, but wrote the book Heads Up Baseball. And him and I really had went to work throughout that whole year about just starting to kind of build my mentality up, because your talent can only take you so far in this sport, baseball or softball or whatever sport you choose to play. That mental competitive edge that you choose to train and work on is that extra little bit that can get you to that next level and kind of differs the good and the great. So I remember this moment vividly, and Lawrie Sipple had said, I'm going to start. And Ken Ravizza had always said in the mental game, like, athletes get to those moments of pressure where their heart hurts, it's pounding, they feel the blood rushing to their face and they don't know how to handle it. And some either choose to continue to go because they don't fear that outcome, and other people choose to pump the brakes because they're scared of what's going to happen. And I remember constantly remembering stuff with Ken throughout that whole year. And for me, it was like, damn, like this is kind of my moment. Like, it's been a tough go with Team Canada. It was by far the hardest year that I ever had to spend away from everyone that I love. Being gone training at 21 years old in Japan for, a month, 2 months in Australia sounds amazing. But at 20 years old, with not truly understanding and not getting along with everyone on the team, I struggled with it. And there was more dark days and more alone days, I think, than I ever had imagined. But it ended up obviously being a blessing in disguise. But I remember having that conversation with Sipple. I went back to my room, and Sheena Lawrie was my roommate. And I remember sitting in bed, like literally like a giddy kid, like, dude, this is my chance. This is going to be an opportunity that I get to hopefully help Team Canada win its first Olympic medal ever. And how cool is it that my name is the one that they want out there? So I started doing everything that Ken had taught me, right? Like, you want to be great in this sport, you got to visualize yourself being successful. You have to see yourself, throwing great pitches, quality pitches, getting yourself out of jams before the situation even happens. And I knew that. So I was going through Australia's lineup, who I'd faced multiple times, but going through their lineup in my head, seeing myself face Stacey Porter, a 2-time Olympian, one of the best in the world, still playing, seeing myself throw pitches against her, seeing myself get out of jams, just different things, and putting myself in that position to go into that bronze medal game, knowing in my head that I've already done it. So I wake up the next morning and kind of put on my uni, get myself going, feeling just blood, everything. It's like, dude, this is game day. This is bronze medal day. Like, let's go. I get in the elevator, and Lawrie Sipple was the head coach, and she was in the elevator too. And it was kind of that awkward, like, hey. And she looks at me and she goes, yeah, so sorry, but we're not starting you anymore. We're going to start Lauren. And at 34 years old, I could fully handle that information and know how to turn that into something positive. At freshly 21 years old, with the mindset of just an absolute bulldog in the circle, I didn't know how to handle it. It crushed me. It almost felt like I couldn't breathe in that moment, because I felt like every single thing and every hoop that I had jumped through, not only throughout my career, but most importantly, this last 2008 Olympic year, like everything I felt like I had worked for and worked towards was for this moment. And now all of a sudden the rug was pulled from under my feet. And I remember Jen Salling, we got to win a national championship together at UW, as well as going to our second Olympics together most recently. But she was my homie on the team, and I pulled her aside and we're sitting on the bus and I'm trying to fight back the tears. And she looks at me and she goes, we still have a chance to win a bronze medal and your name may still be called. And I fully remember going into that game, obviously knowing that we still have a chance to win, but still part of me was so angry and so mad that I couldn't give everything that I possibly could to the team in that moment. And that's by far my biggest regret playing this game, is not being present in that moment and saying, if it's not me, then it's going to be somebody else. And I have to fully be present for whatever is coming our way, because we still have the chance to fight for that Olympic medal. So it was devastating losing that game. We didn't win. I just felt the weight of the world on my shoulders. And I was lucky enough to have my head coach, Heather Tarr, who was at UW there at the Olympics. And, you know, I remember wrapping my arms around her after that game and looking her dead in her eye and being like, there's no way we won't win a national championship next year, because in my heart of hearts, I've never felt like this in the sport. And that's someone that is literally trained harder when no one's watching, because the lights aren't always on you. And when you want to step up and rise to the occasion when they are on you, the game knows if you take those shortcuts. The game knows if you choose not to work hard. And I've always known that, because it's been ingrained in me since I was a kid, and why I've always enjoyed sport, and more importantly, the game of baseball and softball. And the blessing that I took out of that 2008 Olympic year was the fact that it helped turn me into the player that I was for that 2009 national championship year. And God, I can't hash it out enough to say that, like, talent takes you only so far. The best players in our sport are constantly finding ways to better their game any way that they know how, especially nowadays, because there's so many opportunities out there to help better your game, whether it's, you know, figuring out your body, different things, hack machines, there's so much, right? So when I think about that 2009 year, there was another pivotal moment for me where it kind of came to that head. And I always say there's a head of a triangle that you get to as an athlete, where you feel like, damn, I can't control my heartbeat. I feel like I can't breathe. How am I going to get myself out of this situation? And what allows for you to get out of those situations is your mental performance. You've worked and know how to handle the heat. If you can't handle the heat, you got to get out of the kitchen. And this sport is going to expose you in more ways than we even know. So I continue to read Ken Revis's book, probably for like the 10th time, Heads Up Baseball, and would just really be so big and present with like putting myself in those situations. But more importantly, like when I went back to college, it's like I knew that I had to work harder than anyone else, because at the end of the day, if I want it that bad and I'm going to get to those moments where I'm either trying to get to a Women's College World Series or win a national championship, I got to believe when I'm in those moments where it's hard that I've done everything I possibly can to allow for me to thrive regardless of the outcome. And that to me is the difference at times in situations. Like we get to those moments, and as pitchers, we feel it more because the games are won and lost on the balls that leave our hand. And what allows for me to truly understand that I'm okay with both outcomes, winning and losing, is knowing that I have done everything in my damn power to allow for me to get to that moment and be okay, no matter what's going to happen. But I remember there was one regional game that we played, UMass, and this was a defining game for me, where we ended up playing on Sunday. We lost game one. I gave up 3 home runs in that first game. Like, just talk about like a bullet just right at you. The hardest part about pitchers in the game of softball, I guess it's kind of similar with baseball, but you don't go back-to-back days, was that I had a 30-minute window to come back and pitch again, because I threw 352 innings that year. We won the national championship and had close to, I think it was 552 strikeouts. Like, it was ridiculous. You couldn't pay me to go back to do that. But what I remember in that next game was that the first game was 2.5 hours with a 30-minute break. And then all of a sudden we go from the first inning to the 6th inning, to the 8th inning, to the 12th inning, to the 14th inning. We played 15 innings, 5.5 hours of softball, coming off of a 2.5 hour game. We're talking over 300 pitches thrown in a day. And that was truly where I realized, like, the amount of work that I put in my mental performance rose to the occasion. It was that constant, like, what we say to ourselves matters in the biggest moments and in the worst moments. So how are we speaking to ourselves when the pressure's there? Are we automatically saying, when I get into the batter's box, like, I'm going to strike out? Like, there's no way, this girl's too good, this guy's too good. Or is it that sense of like, dude, remember how hard you've worked for this moment? Like, And we have to think in this game, like we very much have to be in control of all of that. And I remember there was multiple times throughout that game where I'm having my teammates come out to me in the 10th, 11th inning with tears in their eyes, because if we lose, we're done. That Women's College World Series and that national championship we're craving to win doesn't happen because we're on a plane back home. So I really remembered that 2008 Olympic grind and how hard that was and how mentally like taxing. And every single pitch, the one thing that I did, and then I continue to keep saying, all I can control is one pitch at a time. If I'm fully committed to what I'm doing, one pitch at a time, then we're in a good spot. If my mind goes elsewhere to the fact that our team can't get a run or this, I'm not present with what I'm doing and I'm not in the best position to help our team win. So we ended up winning. It was probably the most emotional game that I've ever been a part of, because everything just all of a sudden felt like, wow, the stars were aligning. And from then on, we won that national championship. And it was a freaking proud moment as a Canadian, man, being able to play at a university in the United States and to be able to rock Canada and kind of help bridge and open that door and the floodgates for other players to get those scholarship opportunities, because there just wasn't much growing up for me. There wasn't a lot of players that I knew that played in the United States. Kind of lastly, we'll go into that mental health thing, and I'll try to keep this really short. When I think of mental health, this year for me has been the most taxing I think that I've ever fully experienced on every level, as a wife, as a mama, as a teammate, as a friend. And there was a situation this year, I've been gone and was gone for 73 days straight training for this Olympic Games. If you got COVID, I'm fully vaccinated, but if you got COVID, you 100% couldn't go to the games. And I remember we had to make that sacrifice and not see our family and our friends from the beginning of May all the way up until the end of July when the Olympics was done. 73 days. And, you know, one thing that is challenging when you're well into your 30s, being told how your days are going to look and what you're doing for training day in and day out can take its mental toll. And we were in Marion, Illinois, in the middle of absolute nowhere, cicada season, hot as hell. COVID, we weren't allowed to do anything. We were living in these dorms. And I started to feel myself, man, like questioning why I'm here. Why am I doing this? The Olympics doesn't seem worth it, because my mind right now is elsewhere. I'm not healthy. I'm not good. And I almost felt like I wasn't in control of what made me great, because everybody else was telling me what I needed to do to prepare myself for this Olympic Games. And I'm really proud of myself, because when this moment, and I really kind of had a bad couple of days, I reached out to the team and I called a team meeting. And I said to the team, and I sat in front of all of them and I looked at them and I was like, guys, I'm not in a good place, man. Like, I have to put myself in the best position for this team, for the Olympics coming in 4 weeks. And right now I'm on a downhill spiral and I don't know what it is. I don't have an answer for it, but all I know is that I need 2 days. I need 48 hours for myself. I don't want to go to practice. I don't want to be told what I need to do at practice. Like, I need to fill my bucket. And lo and behold, I found out that our team was in the pit. We call it with Canada, like, you got to just grind, strength training, running, bullpens, practice. And you got to get to that pit, that low spot, to feel like you can build yourself back up to get to the peak of where you needed to be for the Olympics. But I knew that I wasn't in a healthy spot and I was close to tapping out. And a bunch of women on our team were going through the exact same thing, and they were struggling, and the tears came out because people were away from everyone they love. And all of a sudden, like, this opened up for our team to sit and have a discussion and not only grow from this, but our captains went to our coaches and said, we need a break. Like, we're not in a good spot. You're pushing us too hard. You aren't putting in the work. We are. And if we're not in that special headspace that we need to be in to compete for an Olympic medal, like, we're not putting ourselves in the best position. And it was cool seeing that, because it allowed for me to realize that, like, it's okay to be vulnerable with how you feel. And at times I think we constantly push that to the side because it's so competitive, right? Like, you want to be on the national team, you want to be that player, you want to step up. But at the end of the day, if my mind is not where it needs to be, I'm no help to the team when I set foot in the circle. And our team got better because of that moment. And with that being said, I mean, we can quickly dive in before we open anything up for questions, just like how we can help athletes deal with the mental struggles of this game. Okay. From a coach, from a parent, like, I think the number one thing that we need to continue to make sure that we do, and we make it a damn priority, is respecting the person and getting to know the person that they are before we look at the baseball player or the softball player that they are. And that's hard, right? Like, you have all these travel ball teams, like you're the national coach, like all of these things. At the end of the day, I want to win. So do you want to be on the team? Like, I need you to help me. But a coach's mindset and what I pride them in, especially nowadays with the social media, and there's so much riding on a lot of things, this pandemic's still going, like, not everyone's in the best headspace. And I find it, as a mom to these little girls and as someone that is so close with Heather Tarr, the Washington softball coach, like, I think about giving my little girls the opportunity to go play at a college somewhere. So, all right, Maddie, you want to choose, you want to go to Washington, Oregon. As a mom, I need to know damn well that those kids are going to go to a program where their headspace and the person that they are is more important than just the performance they have on the field. And that's hard to understand. But at the end of the day, like, there's too much pressure on these kids at times that if they don't feel like they're taken care of on that end, they won't perform to the highest possible standard that they can. They'll perform when they need to because competitively they want to be great. But to get the best out of our athletes, it's like, how can I connect with them and look them dead in their eye and be like, hey, dude, where are you at? Like, we always say with Canada, with our team, like, when we go to practice, when we go to weights, all of the above, like, we want to be above the line. Doesn't matter if you're having a good day or a bad day, you just want to stay above the line. And it shouldn't be that hard. But on the days when you're not feeling capable of it, like, the coach should almost be the first person you want to talk to. But I find as an athlete, like, especially with our program, we would like talk to each other because we didn't even want to have that conversation with our coach because we didn't feel like he was in the spot to be able to even offer us that sense of advice because he wanted to win so bad. And I'm all about it. But I'm not all about it for a 13-year-old and a 14-year-old and a 15-year-old. I can handle that damn struggle at 34 because I know the women that I'm competing with fully have my back. And that's more important than anything. But a 12-year-old boy or girl may not understand how to deal with the emotions of that. And boys and girls will play harder for you if they know that you have that level of respect and you care about the person that they are before you start worrying about what can you do for me. And I think that that's so important to have that mindset, right? It's a different place right now with everything going on in the world, and just being able to have that small conversation and getting to know your athletes and figure out what the hell that makes them tick, right? Like, a pitcher, Sarah Gronewagen, who was one of our studs on our team, she doesn't tick the same way I do. Mark had to figure out how he could talk with her and figure out what she brings to the table to make her best. And more importantly, like, getting to know me for what I can do and what allows me to feel great as well. So with that being said, I kind of want to take a look if there's any questions or answers.
Yeah, for sure, Danielle. I mean, first off, just thank you so much, Adam, back on here. I mean, there's so much amazing stuff to unpack here. So just wanted off the hop just to say thank you for your talk. And I know there's a lot of questions, so I don't want to talk too much, but it's very interesting you brought up Heads Up Baseball, because last year when we did this, we had Jimmy Van Ostran on, somebody who you know very well. And of course, he's the mental performance coach with the Blue Jays, and he referenced that book as well. And then while you were talking, our president and CEO, Jason Dixon, who pitched in the big leagues with the Angels, said that Ken Ravizza was with the Angels when he was there, and he just had so many good things to say. So I want to start with one question from Jason, who said, when you pick up the book Heads Up Baseball, what chapter do you flip to first and why?
Oh, dang. That's a tough. I'm so detailed into all of them that there's not one in particular. I think there's the biggest piece of advice in there for pitchers, and it's kind of that like red light, green light, kind of Squid Games-ish, but that mentality of like truly owning the moment as an athlete. And if you're not 100% convicted and committed to what you're doing, you shouldn't try to speed the game up. You have to have the ability to slow it down. And that is such a cool thing to like know now that I'm 34 and have done it. But man, there was a couple times in the Olympic Games where it's like the pressure was thick. We had 5 games to play, hopefully a medal game. Every single game matters. My whole entire life, most importantly, the last 4 years were meant for 5 games. That's absolutely insane. You can't mess up. So how are we using that to our advantage in our head? Because it can be easy as an athlete to go like, damn, I got 5 games. I hope I don't blow it. And there were times where it's like I felt that pressure and I felt my heart rate elevate. And I would just think right back to his book, like, dude, slow the game down. Like, there's no fans in the stands. So that's number one. It's not like people are yelling at me, but I would call time and I would just take a 360 of the stadium and like take a breather and be like, dude, you're so lucky to like be in this moment. Like, these are the moments that like I truly dreamt of going back to play the game one more time. Right. And I was lucky enough to be able to win a medal and come back to my girls and show them that mama can do a lot of cool things. But I truly believe that women aren't in their prime until they're in their 30s. But being able to slow the game down is huge, and just taking ownership of the moment.
Awesome. And another question, this came in through text actually from Carson, who's a 15U pitcher. And
Mhm.
he's wondering, after a bad start, how do you regroup and what's your mindset in order to have a better outing the next time out?
Yeah. Well, number one, how we speak to ourselves matters, right? Like, sport is a beautiful thing because we never know what the hell is going to happen. And that's the best part about it. But the one thing that I've always said that I have the ability to control is how hard I choose to work. And that always seems to quiet the noise of the win and the losses. And there's been some really tough losses in my career, a lot that I can sit back and remember, couple at Washington. And for me, I remember one in particular after it was a horrific game, 3 home runs to the same player, just like that feeling of like, ugh, what I personally needed to do in that moment, because I felt like I wasn't myself out there. I sat in the locker room while the team went back for our super regionals. They went back to the hotel, and I sat in the locker room with my coach and I watched the game and I muted it. And I just watched myself throwing terrible and seeing my demeanor, seeing my attitude, like, how's my body language, like all the things that are important to recognize. And you may not know it in the moment, but a lot of people are visual learners. So if you can see yourself doing something and go like, okay, damn, he's talking about I'm dropping my elbow and I'm swinging, but it doesn't feel like it. But as soon as you see it, it allows for you to be like, okay, wow, that's happening. So I need to change that. So for me, I'm big on, like, I love running. It's the hardest thing that I do. But for me, I just go for like a 30-minute run that next day and just kind of flush my mind and get myself ready for that next opportunity. And I just sit and I try to watch the video of the bad games. And more importantly, everyone should have a hype video that they can watch of themselves for 5 to 10 minutes of just like being great, because that's what you need to know going into a start. Like, you have to see yourself, feel yourself, and be bougie as ever, because if we don't feel it, like, we can't fake it when we get out there.
Awesome. Okay, moving along, we got another one from Derek. He says, I can truly appreciate how you were able to step up and call a meeting with your team to say that you weren't in a good spot.
Mm.
How can a coach see or know if their minor or little league athlete is going through an issue?
Yeah, be having like it should almost be like a mandatory team talk, like once a week or before practice. We have 10 minutes that we sit as a team and we just kind of figure out and hash it out. Like, okay, where's Jimmy at today? Like, where's Danielle at? Like, where are your guys' heads at? But making it where it's not intimidating to speak your truth and how you feel, right? Because if we're not open to listening to others and it's just, okay, get to practice, okay, boom, good. That's like, then it just seems like that's all that matters. And majority of the time that does matter. But nowadays the times have changed and there's a lot more mental health issues. So it's getting to know your athletes, but having that open space where it's not a sense of punishment if you know someone's struggling. It's almost like the baseball mentality. You don't ever want to be in the training room. You're in the training room, you're not going to play, right? Like, so they always skip out. Like, I don't want to take care of myself, but this is something that's a priority. You have to take care of what's going on between your ears if you want to perform as a son, as a, someone in school, someone that's able to check all these boxes. That's number one. So how can we put ourselves in that position? And as a staff, if I was a coach, it would be like, I'm having a mandatory 5 minutes, or I have a 5 minutes that I connect with a player every single day to just, okay, how's everything going? How's school? Everything good at home with your parents? How can I help you? Is there anything that I can do to make you feel better? Right? Because we can't all coach kids the same. Like it's just, we're not going to have a successful program. We have to know what makes Harper tick and we have to know what makes me tick. But that means that a coach has to get out of their comfort zone and truly get to know a player for the person that they are, more importantly, just the athlete that they are.
Awesome. Danielle, I wish we had more time. Unfortunately, we have to move along. There was another question, but I think that you just answered it in terms of getting to know your athletes.
Mhm.
As I mentioned, tons of great stuff to unpack. Just a couple things that stood out to me. Filling my bucket. It's okay to feel vulnerable and in how you feel, respecting the person. Those are some takeaways for me for sure, as not only a coach, but as a father as well. So I encourage everyone to follow Danielle on Instagram. It's Danielle Lawrie 15. We're going to put it in the chat. Really appreciate you taking the time. Congratulations on all of your success. What an amazing career. We wish you nothing but the best to you and your family. And thanks again for joining us tonight, Danielle.
Thank you. Thanks for thinking of me and wanting me to be a part of this. I appreciate it so much. Thanks again.